Good afternoon. This is Lynx. I have been trying to figure out how I wanted to explain this concept today. I had a conversation actually with my partner, and it made me think. Made me think about this topic that I've been looking at for years and years and years and years and years. Not really figuring out how I wanted to talk about it. So let me dive in here and see if I can. And I got my cards here I got some Lenormand cards here to see if I can set some notes for myself. Okay, there and there it is, and a whole bunch of them fell out. Wow, and it kind of explains it pretty clearly, what the symbols that fell out. Okay, let me start by saying that. From my own experience, I spent years and years and years and years and years studying and taking courses and learning things and practicing things and practicing the tarot. My focus was not on money, okay? Because that really, people say a lot. They're like, well, if you were a psychic, you'd know the lottery numbers, and you'd be a millionaire. And someone said that to me once, and I said, well, now I know what your God is, and I know what you think is the most valuable thing in the world. But not everyone thinks that that's the most valuable thing in the world, and that's okay. Okay, I'm not an advocate of poverty. I think there's far too much poverty among people who are working as psychics and healers. I don't think it's necessary. I also think the more you help people and the more value you give, the more you get. But I got to say something about this. Not everyone, however, who ends up in a position where they've got, millions, is honest and or gives. They take it. There are a great many people in the world right now who have gotten where they've gotten in terms of being very wealthy and very well connected and very powerful, not because of their ability, but because they took it. They bullied people into it. They took it. But for the longest time, that wasn't even my focus. And because it wasn't my focus, because I wasn't focused on money, it was pretty hard to make it, because where your mind goes, your energy flows, right? But I was interested in learning lots of things and peeling away the layers of the mind and understanding the mind and understanding myself. I'd spent so much time in education to become a college professor, and then after that, I felt like this was useless. All this money, time, and effort, pushed into this. I think the college system is broken. I think it's extremely broken, and it's dysfunctional, and I think it encourages dysfunction. But that aside, after that, I started taking hypnosis courses and trance channeling, all these things. And in some cases, I actually didn't have the money to do it. The money would come in, and I was like, "Oh God, what am I going to do?" But I take the course. I take a couple $1,000s, and I'd put it in the course, and I learned it. And what would happen is sometimes that would be the thing that would open up the space, and then money would come in. Because I see a lot of people in this. They're worried about money. They're worried about resources, and they're worried about all this stuff. This is what I'm going to tell you, though, from all the clients that I've had. So that wasn't necessarily my focus was on how can I do what I love? How can I be fulfilled? That was really all my whole life. That's been like, well, how do you be fulfilled? And there's a reason for it. My first job was at 12, and it was in a not so nice place. And I talk about this a little bit in the book. I'll just tell you guys. My first job, I was 12 years old, and I worked in a bar as a barback. Okay. That was not my idea. It was illegal that I was working there. I was paid under the table, and I saw some not so nice things. And I saw a lot of people who weren't happy. And I saw a lot of people who were unfulfilled. And I saw a lot of people who had jobs during the week, but they come to this bar and get drunk every day, every night, And I saw some people that just had nothing but constant, So I saw this when I was a kid, and I was like, no, this is not where a human being should end up. So like right when I was very young, I started to go, well, why don't people do what they love? Why don't they do what makes them fulfilled? And I think at that moment I started looking for that. I mean, there's more, there's a little more to it than that, but that like sort of like made me go, why do people do this, right? And it sort of became this sort of obsession of mine. It's like, well, why, how do you become fulfilled? How do you flourish? How do you, do what you love? How do you not end up like these people? And I saw them in the neighborhood too, because like I lived in the bar was literally walking distance from my house. Like across the street, I'd walk over there and I'd see these people, and I'd see them in the neighborhood, and they're miserable, and their fights that they get into with people and all this, and I'd be like, what is with these people, right? Then when I started doing readings for people, I'd see people who like were very well off, and they weren't fulfilled, or their relationships. I have a huge number of clients right now who they make really good money. They have really nice places to live and everything. They're absolutely unfulfilled. They have no relationships. They have no love, and they're miserable about it. And a lot of them are, a lot of people have addictions. They get wealthy. They have addictions. There's all sorts of things that go into it. This is the whole point of this video, is what I'm getting at, is that people are setting themselves up as spiritual gurus, right? And they show people that they're the guru, that they know, that they succeeded. Watch this. Please, guys, watch this, okay? They start from on top of the mountain. Look, I learned all this stuff. Now I have a private island. Now I'm a millionaire. I have a fancy car. I have all these things, okay? Nothing wrong with those things. You should enjoy yourself. And a client taught me that. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. You should enjoy yourself. You should enjoy it. And if that's what they're focused on getting, that's what they're focused on getting. But then they end up there, and then there's something missing. What happens is the shiny gets everyone to go, this person must be spiritually successful because they have billions. And then you start to look at these people again. Look in their eyes, and then look at what their motivations are, and look at whether or not they're happy. People are drawn to the shiny. For a very long time, I had no concern for it, because I wanted to understand a whole lot of different things. I wanted to learn about the mind. I wanted to learn about psychic development. I wanted to learn about ghosts. I wanted to learn about all that. So that was really where my interest was from the time I was a kid. And I was always getting people going, well, why don't you do this? What are you doing? And then I got this crazy idea when I went to college that I was going to explore the arts, because I loved the art. Because I grew up around artists. All my friends were artists and everything, and I became I became a dancer. I went to school at Chicago Ballet. I minored in dance in college, and I was also a writer. And some of you know that some of you have actually read my novels. And then I was a writing professor. Okay, so I was like deep in the arts, and everyone's like, well, why don't you focus on? I was like, there's time to focus on money. I want to focus on all these other things, right? And then I was really that belief that, and I've said it in other videos, like if you do what you love, the money will follow. It's not always true. But still, and I struggled in a lot of cases, and in a lot of cases I ended up going without because I was more interested in learning something else. I'm just going to tell you this piece. Then a client of mine said something to me. I used to do readings for her, and she'd give me 3 times what I was charging. She says, you don't charge enough. For what you do and what you give, you don't charge enough. And she would pay me 3 times my rate. And I ended up raising my rate to that, and I was like, she's right, why shouldn't I enjoy myself? I've worked so hard in so many years to get here, why shouldn't I enjoy it? Why shouldn't I do what I love full time and be able to do everything else I want to do too? So that kind of took care of itself, but my main focus wasn't on the money thing, right? But the way these people teach you is that, look, I've got a private island. And there was a famous, I'm not going to mention names, but there was this famous guru. He lived on an island, and that was his big deal. And he was huge. He was huge from his books and stuff and his courses and all stuff. And he had an island, and he was really big on, I've got an island, and this is the way, and only positive energy, and only organic food, and you should be eating this way, and you should be doing this. And then he got cancer and died. After, I believe, getting a divorce. And I was like, well, wait a minute, you're teaching people that the road that you went is the way to fulfillment, but it's not, because see, what people are looking for is the fulfillment piece, not the shiny. But they think they've been trained to believe that if they got a mansion, if they got fancy cars, if they live in a Hawaiian island or in the Caribbean or whatever, they got it made. They got it figured out. They're spiritual. They're fulfilled. And I will tell you from all the years I've been doing this, how many clients I have, they're extremely wealthy or even, in very interesting circumstances, professions that people would think they're not fulfilled. They come to me and they go, I'm missing something, I do have people who come to me to predict, business stuff, stock stuff like that. But the majority of people come to me because they're like, I'm not fulfilled. I don't have the relationships, I don't have the love. And then you see all this other stuff. It's like, well, you focused on all this other stuff. You thought, I'll get the money, the house, all this stuff, and then that's what's going to make me happy. And what it ends up being is it ends up being a collar. It ends up binding them to the devil card, right? It doesn't give them the protection they want. It doesn't give them the security they want. It doesn't give them everything. It's not the key. What people are really looking for, what they're really asking for, is some kind of fulfillment. And these other things, and they're just like, look, we have all this money, we have all this power, we're the teachers, we're the gurus, and it's like, what do they spend their time focused on? So, I will say this. I don't believe it's wrong to have the things that you want out of life, and you can have the things that you want out of life, but ask yourself what your focus is. What do you want to learn? Is it on making a lot of money? Because that's going to spend most of your time. So if you want to learn these other things, whatever you focus on, that's what you're going to cultivate. So if you're focused on making a lot of money, that's probably what you're going to cultivate, and you probably will cultivate it because you'll invest your energy, your time in it, and it'll start to pay off. If you're interested in some other stuff, that too. And there's some people get to the place where they go, hey, I want to get to where I'm financially stable, and then I'll study those other things. Okay, that's right. I thought about it the other way around. I'm like, I want to study all these things, and then I'll got time for. And then it kind of worked in my favor because then now I can set my rates with my clients, and I have all these ideas now about how to build more courses, more things, more stuff, and but I wanted to learn how the mind worked first. So my point is that look at who you're looking at and what message they're giving you. It's like, is their life happy? Is their life fulfilled? Are they doing what they love? And do they really have something to share? Or are they telling you, look, I got a car, I got a house, I got all this stuff, and then they're sick, they're losing everything, their relationships are crumbling. Just look at that stuff. What is it that you're really looking for? Because if you're looking to make all that money, well then they probably know how to get you there. But if you're looking for the fulfillment, and I'm not saying you can't have both, because you can. You absolutely can. But I always look at these people and go, well, what are they trying to entice people into? The belief that the money is going to make them happy, because it doesn't. Money doesn't necessarily make you happy. And on the other side, poverty doesn't make you happy. So I'm not an advocate of, go without and you're going to be, you're happy because you're poor. No, there's more responsibility the more you gain. There's more responsibility. But, being up here in a case where you're never feeling like there's enough that comes with poverty, that's not a good place to be either. So, my point is that these gurus and these people they're selling you on, this is the path to enlightenment, this is the path to this is the path to that. Ask what they're really selling. Are they actually selling you things that actually make you look at yourself? Because I was always like, well, how do I use this to gain a deeper understanding of myself? How do I peel the pieces back? And then I go back to that time when I was working as a kid in that bar, watching all those people. And I'm this 12-year-old kid, and these people are like, and they're talking to me about the meaning of life. And I learned right then that age and wisdom don't necessarily show up together. They all had this advice, and I was like, yeah, it's not working for you. Well, you need to get a job this way, yeah. And you're like, I just saw you down the street, like fighting with your wife, and now you're drunk, and last night you were here and you threw up in the parking lot. So, what is it that you're looking for, Do you want fulfillment? Do you want the shiny thing? Because they don't necessarily line up. Can someone actually do what they say they do? Or are you just interested in the shiny? Oh, well, she's got $1 billion. She must be the ultimate manifester and the ultimate spiritual guru. maybe, or maybe she's got the money to be able to hide how miserable she really is and keep you believing that you need to put money in her pocket because really that's what she values. So going back to that whole thing, why won't you, if you're psychic, why don't you win the lottery? Well, I have an answer to this actually in my book, and why. That's first. But second, maybe not everyone, maybe that's not their primary value. Maybe sometimes their value's on something else. For me, the value was, well, how do I learn how to do this really well? How do I learn to peel back the pieces and understand myself better? How do I learn what real spiritual power is? The money stuff, I can figure that out later. So I spent a good portion of my early life going, well, you know, at the expense of other things. You know, I was like, well, I don't care about that. I want to learn this. I want to learn that. So when you want to learn this stuff, do you really want to learn it? Or are you saying, because this is it, people come up with excuses. Well, I can't take this class because I have this. I can't do that because I have that. Well, I have this job. I have this. That's that. Think about what it is you're really saying you want. Don't wish for one thing with you know, out of one side of your mouth and then push it away with the other side of your mouth when it starts to come. I hope this makes sense. I hope I put it in order, and I hope I explained it clearly. I think most people... No, I'm going to take that back. Some people, all they want is money and glitter. That's all they want. If you want fulfillment, be aware that if you go to the guy with the biggest money and glitter, he might not be able to tell you how to do it. You know, it's like the people who you think they got the really good relationships because everything on Facebook looks good, and then you meet them in person and then you watch how they are really, and you're like, whoa, that was all a show. So I kind of said this in the last, I think it was the last, or two videos ago. Look in the eyes. Do their words and actions line up? What are you really asking for? I always think about those people back in that bar and how unhappy they were and how they thought security came from all of the others. And some of them, you know, they had a lot of money, they had nice cars, they had nice houses. I didn't live in a, you know. I lived in Chicago in a neighborhood that was, you know, some people had some really nice stuff, and then, but they were kind of empty in the other way. So what are you asking for? And then the other thing too is I think about that famous guru who was teaching everybody about, you know, you're supposed to eat this because this makes you healthy and this, and he ended up, his relationships fell apart and he ended up getting cancer. And I thought, wow, I wonder if he really had it as figured out as he claimed he did. You know, and I'm not saying anything about, there's no judgment on the sicknesses he got or stuff, but it's like, well, he was very certain that he had it figured out, but then it didn't look in the end like he did necessarily. And then maybe the guy with the most toys isn't necessarily the guy who's most fulfilled. Because I think at the end, and Steve Jobs was another one like this. I mean, and that's a perfect example. Steve Jobs said in the end, it's like he had the most toys, but he wasn't fulfilled. And you read his last words, what he said, he wasn't fulfilled. So sometimes we think the guy with the most toys with the biggest flash has all the answers. Maybe he was just focused on getting the most toys and the biggest flash. Maybe the guy who has the answers is the guy who spent his life focusing on getting the answers, because that's what he or she valued. I'm Lucky Links, as always, wishing you success and good fortune in all that you do. If you'd like to get a reading from me, 779-302-8009 or conjurehope@gmail.com. If you would like to take, I'm doing this really kick-ass class now on Lenormand Grand Tableau, and if you'd like to take that class, contact me. Or if you'd like to take a basics on Lenormand, I'll show you how to do that. If you'd like to take a tarot class, I have a class on that. If you'd like to take a class on how to read the crystal ball, I have that. And if you'd like to take one on playing cards, I have that. I think I got one more, don't I? Yeah, I got a Mexican Loteria class. If you'd like to take that one, you can contact me. Same way. Like video, share it in all the groups. Let everyone know. I am going to be giving away some hypnosis MP3s. Psychic development hypnosis MP3s. I'm in the process of making them. I'm gonna have a contest. I'm gonna give away to 3 people. I'm gonna give away some hypnosis. How to, just you put them in, you listen to develop your psychic ability. I'm building those right now. It's a lot of fun. I'm writing a book. That will be coming out soon. So I'm going to have a contest by people who share my stuff, like my stuff, subscribe, and then share it all over the place. And then I'm going to have the details on how you can enter the contest. I'm going to need you to write, I'll tell you about that. But it's coming. So keep watching, subscribe, and get notifications, because I'm going to tell you how you might be able to win some of those hypnosis MP3s. You just listen to them to develop your psychic ability. I'll tell you how to do that very soon. So I hope you guys have a great week. And remember, the guy with the most toys isn't necessarily the guy who has the most fulfillment. And the guy who has the most fulfillment doesn't necessarily care about having the most toys. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but it's not necessary that one has those as the situations.